This is a CF-31 Mark III VGA docking port, audio port, and serial port board replacement. The first step is to remove the bottom screws off the bottom plate. As you can see, it's just the screws along the outer edge. And there's 6 screws that are recessed into the computer. The ones that are recessed in are slightly longer than the ones that are around the outside. Once the screws are removed, just open up the bottom plate. If it's the first time opening it, you might need to use a flathead screwdriver to pry it open a little bit. Then you can start by lifting up the cabling out of the way. Start with this wide, thin copper cabling that runs to the connector for the secondary battery. Then you can just lift that up and push it to the side for now. You don't have to completely disconnect it. Just move it out of your way. Unscrew the screws holding the connector in place for the media drive and move that out of your way. Then there's a plate underneath of where the media drive goes. You need to remove the screws holding that in place and remove that. There's 2 screws holding a separator that goes between the 2 pieces of memory. So just remove the top piece and unscrew the 2 screws holding that separator in place and remove that separator so you can lift up that plate that goes underneath the media drive. Once that's out of the way, you should be able to lift the cover up. Once that's done, you can move all these antenna wires out of your way and get the plastic cover that holds the antenna wires in place unscrewed and out of the way as well. Make sure to keep track of where all the wires go. If you're careful, you can lift up this plastic cover and move it out of the way without having to completely take the wires out. Save yourself some time. You just lift them up out of the way once they're undone and pull it up at an angle. Now you need to flip it to the back side where you can access the back panel. And there are four screws around, 2 around the VGA, 2 around the serial port that require a 5mm socket to remove. And there are 3 screws around the docking port that just use a Phillips head screwdriver. There's smaller black screws that are kind of hard to see on the camera, but with the machine in front of you, you'll see it. And there's 2 small silver screws on either side of the audio ports. Just undo all of those, and the board's ready. It will be ready to pull out after disconnecting the cabling. Once you have all the screws removed, go ahead and sit the computer back down and proceed to lift up the connector and pull the wires out, the ribbon cables out. Once those are undone, you can carefully lift up and wiggle out the old board. And then slide in your replacement board. And you can, once you slide it in place, you can put the ribbon cables in right away, or you can put the screws in on the back and then put the ribbon cables in. It seems to me to help hold the board in place with the ribbon cables on first. So I always put those back on first just to help hold the board in place when you have it upside down, to put the screws back on it. You just push the cables in until they're in position, and then you close the connector back down. It's just a little tab that lifts up and down. There's 2 ribbon cables, just make sure they're both plugged in. And then just put the 4 silver screws back in that you need the 5mm for. I usually just put them in by finger tight at first until I make sure everything's lined up properly to screw in, and then I'll tighten it down. And there's the 2 smaller silver screws on either side of the auto board. Those need to go back in. And the 3 smaller black screws that go around the docking port, they need to go back in as well. Then go ahead and put the plastic covering back in underneath where the media drive goes. Just separates the media drive from the motherboard. Put the screws in place, holding it down in place. Then go ahead and reconnect the media drive cable and screw it down in place. Put the plastic cover back in place that all the antenna wires click into. Reconnect any antenna wires and reposition the antenna wires as needed. Slide the wiring in place. Put the 2 screws in, holding the connector for the secondary battery in place. And then put the 2 screws holding the cable down in place. Then put the memory separator in place. And screw it back down. Put the screws back in and just screw it back down. And if you had it had a second stick of RAM in place, just go ahead and put it back in. And you can put your bottom plate back on and put the screws in place for the bottom plate. Once the screws are in place, you're all done. You can go ahead and turn the computer on and continue to use your computer. If you have any other questions, any comments, just let us know. If you have any suggestions for future videos, just let us know. You can leave it in a comment or send us an email to our tech support email, which is tech_support@bobjohnson.com.